But it is time now for our next debate, and we are asking, should the Fab Four reunite? 0207 862 2222 if you would like to get involved. And this is the front of The Sun today. The headline, "We're all grin it together." Royals united front over Harry and Meghan's return. Prince Harry and Meghan are set to return to the UK within weeks, as we know. So we're asking, could this surprise return mark the beginning of a royal reconciliation? The so-called Fab Four, as they were once known, Prince Harry, Prince William, along with their wives, Princess Kate and Meghan. But is there still too much bad blood between them? Let's get the thoughts of the panel and all of this. I mean, that's the Fab Four when they weren't really so fab that we're looking at there, because obviously this was after the death of Her Majesty the Queen, but there were tensions already at that point, weren't there? And I think they even came back from the US for all of this. But, you know, pre-2020, they used to actually go to engagements together, didn't they? Do you think we could ever see the Fab Four back together?
Well, I don't think so. I think the blood between Prince William and Prince Harry is so bad, particularly on Prince William's side, that I would be amazed if there was a reconciliation. However, for the monarchy to survive, I think there should be a reconciliation, and that will be driven by King Charles III, who will want to try and repair the damage within his family. But personally, I don't want Harry and Meghan to come back to this country. They decided, we've got a better life in America. We can make millions and millions, like tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, by betraying the royal family that Harry belongs to in really, really horrible ways. The book, the Oprah Winfrey, the Netflix series, now that's petered out. They're no longer of any interest to the Americans. And so they've decided, because they do not like to be ignored, they like to be in the headlines all the time. And so I think they've decided their only option now is to come back to Britain, because the Americans don't want them anymore. That's my reading of it.
We don't know what the reasoning is. Is it possible, Yasmin, that ill health puts everything into perspective? The King is still receiving treatment for cancer. We know that Kate had a private treatment for cancer as well. And maybe you can bury the hatchet when you actually get things into perspective.
I don't give a damn about the royal family, but I really don't. I'm a Republican. I want them out. I want a fair, they represent the class system in its extreme form. Having said that, though, I find it astonishing how this couple, and I think it must be connected to the private visit they made quite recently.
In July.
And, you know, the King is getting old and he's not very well, we know that. It's their business. Why do we have to sit here in judgment and tell the brothers, oh, we hope you get on. What will happen will happen. They're private citizens. They're not using our money. I think they should be left as private citizens. But this hatred that boils over every time Harry and Meghan are mentioned, partly because of the way the media has gone on and on about it, but a lot of people really love Harry. You know, he has a way about him that William doesn't. So we'll see what happens. But really, let's get the Republican. And I know people will get very excited now. They have so much to talk about.
OK.
Do they use the same toothpaste? He will know.
Yeah, let's speak to former Liberal Democrat MP and Government Minister Norman Baker, who's also written extensively about the monarchy, particularly when it comes to their funds. Always lovely to see you, Norman. I hope you're well. Listen, Yasmin's saying there, look, they're private citizens. We don't pay for them. Is that going to be the case? My understanding is that there's going to be a review into whether or not we taxpayers have to pay for their security, and we could end up footing that bill, couldn't we?
Well, let's just remind ourselves who the Fab Four were, which were the Beatles. And when they split up, I can remember they never got back together again. So perhaps that's an indication of what will happen with this so-called Fab Four. I think I agree with Mike, actually. The blood is so bad that I think it's very unlikely William will retain what he calls, no doubt, a dignified silence, but he's in danger of looking cold and churlish if he says nothing, and being hoisted by his own petard if he says something. So the big losers from this are William and Kate, if you like, if you want to look at things in analytical terms. And the winners are probably Charles, who looks like he's the only person trying to pull people back together again. But in terms of the cost, look, I mean, I understand that we come back with no guarantees from the Home Office about the cost of security. And I think in some ways, ironically, they may have come back partly because they were refused security cover What I mean by that is, had they been successful in their court case against the Home Office for security cover in the UK, that may have read across to security cover in the US, which is phenomenally expensive. But because they haven't got that, they may have had to come back, tails between their legs. Their deals with the big multinational companies are kind of fading. The money's not coming in. There's also, Harry says he loves his country. I'm sure he does. And those things are playing in together. But let's be quite clear about this. They will carry on in the public eye, whether people want them to or not. Harry's got the Invictus Games next year. He'll be centre stage from that. And he is actually more better with the media than William is, who's rather stilted and stuffy on occasions. And I think there will be an alternative court, and it will make William and Kate look less good than they do at the moment.
Squaddies, sit down. Because Jeremy Vine just gave his panel a live microphone to debate whether Harry and Meghan deserve to come home. And what came out of that segment tells you everything about how this country's media actually thinks about the Sussexes. They dressed it up as a nice, cosy question. Could the Fab Four reunite? Sweet, right? Nostalgic even? But strip away the soft framing, and what you actually got was a panel where one voice accused Meghan of not understanding royal duty. Another dismissed years of humanitarian work as me, and a caller demanded a public apology from a man for telling the truth about his own childhood. So today we're doing what we always do here. We're giving you the receipts, we're steelmanning the other side fairly, and then we're pivoting hard into why this narrative doesn't hold up. Let's be fair first. That's how we do it here. The panel's central claim was that the relationship between Harry and William has deteriorated so badly that a genuine warm reunion is basically fantasy. That whatever pressure exists to smooth things over is coming from the top, from King Charles, who reportedly wants a united family as his health situation continues to be managed. One commentator went so far as to frame the timing cynically. American interest in the couple has cooled since the Netflix deal and the memoir cycle wound down. So, the theory goes, a UK return is less about family and more about relevance. There was also a financial angle raised. Whether UK taxpayers should be on the hook for security costs if the couple spends more time in Britain was a genuine sticking point, and a recent poll was cited showing a majority of respondents think the Sussexes should fund their own protection. And to their credit, not every voice on that panel was hostile. One commentator pushed back hard on the framing itself, essentially asking, why do we feel entitled to sit in judgment on two private citizens making a personal visit to a sick relative? That's a fair question, and it's one we're going to come back to. So that's the steelman. Family rift, financial politics, and a debate about relevance. On paper, that's a legitimate news story. Here's where it falls apart. Squaddies, watch what happened in that segment. A father goes to see his elderly ill parent. That is the entire event. And somehow, in the space of 10 minutes, it became a referendum on whether Meghan understands duty, whether Harry owes his brother a public apology, and whether the whole visit is a cynical cash grab because the Americans don't want them anymore. Ask yourself, when was the last time a family visiting a sick parent was treated as evidence of a business strategy? This is the Rota playbook, and it hasn't changed since 2020. Anything Harry and Meghan do gets a motive attached to it before the facts are even in. Come home to see your dying, unwell father. Must be desperate for relevance. Stay in America and build an independent life. Must be running from your family. There is no version of this couple's behaviour that the traditional press will accept as simply normal, simply human. And notice something else. One caller demanded Harry apologise for writing about his own life in his own memoir, while in the very same breath a panellist pointed out that King Charles gave extensive, unflinching interviews about his cold, difficult childhood to a biographer decades ago, and nobody demanded an apology from him. Nobody called him disloyal. Nobody said he spilled the beans and needed to grovel for it. That, right there, is the double standard this channel was built to expose. The same institution, the same family, the same act, brutally honest reflection on a painful upbringing, gets treated as statesmanlike from one man and as betrayal from another. The difference isn't the content. It's who's speaking, and it's who Meghan is. Let's deal directly with the claim that got repeated like gospel on that panel, that Harry and Meghan only want to come back because American interest has petered out and the money isn't flowing the way it used to. Think about the actual timeline for a second. This is a couple that has spent years building an independent foundation, that has kept the Invictus Games, a genuine, globally respected platform for wounded veterans, as a central pillar of their public work, regardless of where the tabloid news cycle currently points its camera. Meghan's continued involvement in that mission, Harry's ongoing well-child visits, the years of quiet advocacy work that never trends because it doesn't fit the difficult couple story. None of that vanishes the moment a headline writer decides their relevance has dipped. The truth is much simpler and much less cynical than the panel wanted it to be. People visit sick parents. That's it. That's the whole story. Turning that into evidence of a business pivot says a lot more about the people doing the speculating than it does about the family doing the visiting. Here's something the panel actually got right, even if they didn't mean to hand us a point. More than one commentator noted that William's continued public silence is starting to look less like dignity and more like a liability, that he risks appearing cold if he says nothing, and risks blowback if he finally does say something. We'll take that, because that's the real tension at the heart of this entire Fab Four fantasy. The press wants a fairy tale reunion, but the person they're least willing to put under any scrutiny is the future king. Every ounce of pressure in these segments gets aimed at Harry and Meghan to apologise, to explain themselves, to earn their way back in. Nobody on that panel asked William to say a single word publicly. Nobody demanded he clarify his position. The silence gets a pass that the honesty never does. If the firm wants unity, unity requires two people willing to speak. Right now, only one side is being asked to. And let's touch on the security funding debate honestly, because it's a legitimate question dressed up in a very convenient way. One commentator made a sharp point that got buried in the segment. The slimmed-down monarchy the press loves to talk about isn't actually slim at all. Fewer people standing on a balcony doesn't mean lower costs. Overall, royal expenditure has continued climbing, regardless of who's on the balcony. If the public conversation is really about cost to taxpayers, then the conversation shouldn't stop at Harry and Meghan. It should extend to the entire institution. Funny how that part of the argument never gets the same energy. By the end of that segment, even the panel itself seemed to know the Fab Four framing was mostly theatre. One voice bluntly pointed out that the actual Fab Four, the Beatles, split up and never reformed, and treated that as basically the final word on the whole debate. Maybe that's true for the Beatles, but real families aren't a band. Real families don't need a record label's blessing to sit in the same room. What real reconciliation needs is exactly what that one dissenting panellist said out loud, almost as an aside, to stop sitting in judgment on two private citizens and just let them be private citizens. That's it. That's the whole ask, Not headlines, not demanded apologies, not a tabloid tribunal every single time this family exists in public. Just room to be human. So here's where we land, squaddies. This wasn't really a debate about whether Harry and William can reconcile. It was a debate about whether the British press can let this couple exist without a motive attached to every single move they make. And based on that segment, the answer is still no. But that's exactly why this channel matters. Every time the Rota tries to spin a family visit into a scandal, we're here breaking it down, receipt by receipt, and calling it what it is. If this broke down something you'd been feeling but couldn't quite put into words, that's what we're here for. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop in the comments. Do you think William's silence is dignity, or is it starting to cost him? We read every single one. We'll see you in the next one, squaddies. Stay loud.